Hello everyone and welcome back to Wanderers Way, the official Bolton Wanderers podcast in association with I Hate. We're back after our summer break and we're ready to crack on. Alongside me, Super John McGinley. How's your summer been, John?
It's been a fantastic summer, Derek. It's been a good start to the season as well. Good pre-season, good start to the season, and long may it continue. Yeah,
and a cracking guest to kick us off the new podcast series. The one and only Stuart Holden joins us. How's it going, Stuart?
Well, I'm honoured to be the first guest after a break. We'll come out with a bang. I'm doing great. First time back here, I've realised, in probably 10 years, just with life and kids and everything. And I was so happy when it worked out with the way my travel we planned it this summer, that I could not only make a game tonight, but kind of be here and show the family around. Really special. I didn't have kids when I was here, so I'm going to be bringing the kids to the match tonight. And I think my son's more excited than anything, and I'm excited to have 5 minutes where they think that I'm cool, where I used to play football, and they, other than like the grainy YouTube highlights that are on TV. So,
so good to be back.
Yeah, so good. Honestly, I'm so excited. As we're recording this, I haven't been to the match or really bumped into anybody as of yet involved with the club other than you guys. And, it was so nostalgic, even just getting off the M61 and taking that roundabout and looking at the stadium, which will always be the Reebok to me, and driving up here. I imagine it would be a little emotional, but probably a little bit more so even just walking in the front doors and looking out here at this pitch and wanting to run around on it again. But all the memories are flooding back into my head. And, it was a pretty important time in my life. I mean, I was here probably playing the best football of my career, 5 years living in the UK, and the type of connection I made with Bolton, the fans, the club, all of that. And it's been so cool, even just so far later and removed from that. I mean, I'm 10 years now since I last played football. When I put on my Instagram or my Twitter that I was coming back, it was my DMs were flooded with Bolton fans. And that to me is a recognition of, I think, a connection that we all had over the years that I really appreciate, and I think is reciprocated by the fans as well.
Well, I think, Stuart, the one thing about this football club is it never leaves you. Regardless of where you move to or where you continue your career, this football club never leaves you. And especially somebody like yourself who made such a good mark at this football club, you'll be forever known here.
Yeah, it's so true. I guess I didn't realize it until later, right? I mean, I think oftentimes when you're in your career, there's so much going on in the moment, and you're focused on training and matches, and you have this connection with the supporters, but it's more in a on a match day type of thing, or a little bit out in the community when we were doing things as the club. And you felt that. I think maybe I felt a little bit more of a deeper connection because of the way I was supported through what was the best point in my career, and then instantly down to the worst when I picked up that injury and this constant struggle to get back and healthy and making a comeback and then getting injured, and finding ways to connect with supporters that kept me going through a time where I'm a positive guy. I've always kind of been a glass half full type of person, but there were moments where I was really struggling, and then I would get messages from supporters saying, "Come on, we need you back on the pitch. We'd love to see you back out at the Reebok again." And that would push me forward a little bit more. And so to your point, I recognized it was special, but maybe not just how special until many years after the fact that I can come back 10 years later, and I know I'm going to see so many people later tonight at the match, and I'm just going to be overwhelmed with this feeling of emotion, and happiness, and that really makes me excited.
Like you said, to bring your kids, and your wife as well, and to bring them here, and for them just to get a taste of it, they'll now know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I've bought my kids Bolton jerseys. My son is an absolute football fanatic. We support football, British football, a little differently in the U.S. We don't have a team outside of the ones that I've played for. I mean, obviously we're Bolton fans, we're Houston Dynamo fans, but my son will wear a Liverpool kit, and then the next day he's wearing a Man United kit, and then if you did that over here, people would be like, "Mate, you're absolutely off your nut." Even my son today, we were in classic football shirts, and he was wearing a Liverpool kit and bought an Arsenal kit, and the guy checking him out was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You don't want another Liverpool kit?" He's like, "No, I like this one." But they know that Bolton is special to me. they have a connection with it. We've watched matches on the TV, you know, over the past couple of years. But I think for them to be in a situation where they'll see the stadium, I've showed them the Blackburn goal about 5,000 times. So they've seen me score that winner and go absolutely mental. And, you know, you piece it all together. So that I'm really excited for, because I didn't have kids when I was here in England.
Just make sure he's not wearing that Man United shirt tonight.
No, he's wearing a new Bolton kit tonight. Absolutely.
Yeah, good man. Talk about the career then. Stuart, growing up, of course, in Scotland. We've got 3 Scots in on
Yeah, no,
the
3
podcast.
Scots, yeah.
What was it like growing up in Aberdeen, wasn't it?
I was a Don. I was a wee Aberdonian. Grew up an Aberdeen fan, going to Pittodrie week in, week out with my dad. I was in the Aberdeen School of Excellence as a youngster. And then my dad got a job in the US in oil. You know, if you're from Aberdeen, you're about 99% chance you're involved in oil. So we moved to the States. I grew up, you know, a good chunk of my life there, playing football, playing, you know, basketball, American different sports. And then really found that football was kind of separating for me and becoming, you know, the sport that I was the best at. And I was in love with football. I watched it all the time. I played it all the time. I went to American University for 1 year. I'm giving the fast version here because I don't want to bore everyone to death, but you know, that made the under-20 national team, was playing in the Milk Cup in Ireland, was scouted by Sunderland. So then I signed with Sunderland on a 6-month contract. Had a bit of an incident outside of the nightclub where we'd all had a couple too many pints. Was hit with the right fist of a Geordie that gave me a double vision on my left eye. I returned back to the US and kind of restarted my career at that point and just needed to play football. Mm-hmm. And so that was with the Houston Dynamo. I won 2 championships there. Was playing out my contract to make it back to England. I forever growing up as a kid in the UK and Scotland, I wanted to play in the Premier League. It was like the big dream of mine. So in my last year of my contract, Owen Coyle's talked about this since. He was watching a game on TV that was a playoff game, me against the Galaxy. Beckham was playing there. It was shown on the TV in the UK, and I played like an amazing match. Mm-hmm. So my agent was connected with him. He was actually the Burnley manager at the time. And so I flew here to go on trial to sign a contract with Burnley. I landed, there was this massive snowstorm, couldn't go to training, watching Sky Sports News, and Owen Coyle is like announced he's going to Bolton, and I phoned my agent. It's like, what does that mean for me? Like, am I going to Burnley? Can I go to Bolton? And it actually ended up being the best thing that had ever happened, because Owen Coyle said, I want him to come in day one with me at Bolton, and he's going to be on level footing with every other player, because he wouldn't have been in training with the guys at the time at Bolton. So I got to come in and basically have an impression on him from the start to compare myself against the guys that were already here, but without a contract. So then at the end of a 2 weeks training stint, he talked to my agent and they said, we want to sign you here. And it was on like a 6-month contract with an option to extend that by a year or two. And I signed at Bolton. And I wasn't in the match day squad for maybe the first, 2 months. And it wasn't until we had a cup match here against Tottenham in the cup. I was on the bench, but I didn't get on. We drew that match 0-0 or something, and it meant a replay down at Spurs. So I remember that replay was on a Wednesday before we played Wolves in a 6-pointer at the weekend. So Coyle was like, all right, I'm going to rotate the squad, like you're going to make your debut. And I remember thinking, like, this is my big chance, and this is my chance to leave an impression and show that I can play at this level. So it was a Wednesday. We got absolutely pumped, I think 3-0 by Spurs, but I played really well that day, believe it or not, even in a hammering. But well enough, I thought I played well enough to I'm going to be on the bench for the first team squad. I get to the stadium that day on the Saturday. Sandy Stewart, the assistant manager, is like, Gaffer wants to speak to you. So I go down, down into his office, and he's like, "How are your legs?" And I was like, "Of course." I was knackered, but I'm thinking, "Yeah, good, Gaffer, good. Yeah, of course you're good." And he says, "Right, I'm going to start you alongside Fab Muamba." And I was like, "What? I'm starting?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're going to play center midfield. Jack Wilshere will be on your left. All this." And I just remember being like, pfft. And then we came out here. We beat Wolves that day, and that was like my moment where I felt like, I had proven that I could do it at this level. And then this also speaks to Owen Coyle. So that, and also luck, if I'm being honest. Am I allowed to swear on this? Because I'll probably swear quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then I went after that game on the Saturday, we won. I was man of the match out here, got my bottle of champagne and all that. And then I flew off with the U.S. to play against Holland the next day. Wednesday, we played Holland. Nigel de Jong breaks my leg in like the 20th minute.
Yeah.
And I was just like, here we go again. I've got 6 months left on my contract. What does that mean? Like, Owen Coyle called me straight away and he said, look, we're already going to take your option on your contract. Don't worry about that. You're going to have a long future at this football club. We've seen enough. We know the type of person you are. We know the type of player you are. And I want you to feel that security, knowing you've got this injury and we're going to get you back and you'll make the World Cup in like 3 months. So like that was a huge statement from him of our relationship, how he felt, I think, about me. And also just a really, it gave me real comfort during my recovery. And it made me want to give even that much more to the football club.
I spoke to him this morning. He sends his regards.
Oh man, yeah, I would love to connect with him again. I've got to get his number. He was really important in my career. I had such a great relationship with him.
He can't speak highly enough of you.
Yeah,
you really can't.
Yeah, the boys used to say he was like my dad, and but now I can say he probably was. You know, we did have that like relationship, but he knew that I would give an honest effort for him, and we had this respect. And yeah, he was the one. And look, football is subjective at times. You know, I might think that someone might think I was not good enough, and he thought that I was his guy. And ultimately, it just is so. I think for all of us, the way that the injuries that followed, because we did have so much success that following season, and we had a brilliant team. Like I think back to that group that we had, and it was. I think at the time I was injured, we were 5th or 6th in the Premier League with 7 or 8 games to go and pushing for Europe, and like. The momentum was here to then think what happened like the following couple of seasons and then getting relegated and now to where, the club's back on its way up. But I have been following for years, but knowing the period of the ups and downs, like it just, you can point to like little moments along the way, right? That different things go different ways, but Coyle, like he was really influential and important and one of the best coaches I've had in my career.
Was he good at the man management side of things, Stuart?
Yeah.
In terms of the training and all that, what was he like?
He was a great man manager. Like he really did have the feeling and the pulse of the group, and knowing when to give the team a little bit more of a push, knowing when to manage certain personalities and players. Knowing the certain subs and the feel for a match within that. We would do tactical work in training, but not as much as other coaches that I had done. But I think he was a coach throughout his career that, look, I mean, you could even say that about some of the best coaches in the game, and that, it's classified, I think, unfairly these days as old school managers. I mean, it's like you think about coaches and, oh, well, he's an old school manager because he just picks the best players. Well, isn't that the point? To pick the best players to win a football match. I think too often we get obsessed with terminology and tactics are such an important part of the game, but still finding the right balance of players and, formation. And you still have to be flexible, and you can't be a total dinosaur and just think you're going to play one way and we're going to win that way and not think that other teams can figure it out. But I still think we have lost touch, I think, or less emphasis on coaches that have that feeling and, finding the players that can create moments and foundational and relationships on the pitch, all throughout to create something that's very harmonious. And I would say that was what he was best at. I mean, Johan Elmander was like a great example of a player who'd been bought by big money for Bolton. He was on high wages, had not had success under Megson. And then Owen Coyle came in and found the partnership with him and Kevin Davis and found ways. I mean, then by the time I left here, Johan Elmander was like unbelievable player, and then goes to Galatasaray and had great success there. It's just, he had different ways with different players, I think, of getting the best out of them. And, maybe at the end there were, for him, it unraveled pretty quickly when the momentum had gone, that I think maybe he couldn't quite build the consensus of the group, judging from afar, because I wasn't as involved in that point dealing with my injuries. But, when we had that team, and in 2010, 2011, I think it was one of the best teams Bolton have had in a long time, at least in my recent history. And, I wasn't able to watch your great teams play, John, but I've seen the highlights. And, like that, the Anelka group, the Djorkaevs and JJ Akacha. So really, really good vibes.
But you touched on it there, I mean, he's a great motivator.
Yeah.
Good man manager, great motivator. I feel he was criticised unfairly at times when he was here. I think, going in that semi-final and getting beat 5-0, as soon as you mention Owen's name or his name's mentioned, that's the
People
game
talk
that
about
always
that
comes
game.
up,
Yeah.
So you're kind of tarnished with that, aren't you?
Yeah.
But, people don't see, when he takes over the club, that he had to get rid of £18 million instantly off the wage bill, and things. We were trading down at that point.
Yeah.
And like you said, to put a team like he did on the pitch that was exciting, that was entertaining, and getting big results after making all these cuts, people don't see that.
Yeah. Well, I think also when I had my perception of Bolton before I got here of like it was a lot of it the success under Big Sam, and that was like associated with Route 1, long football, lump it up, and win the second balls, and then even probably into Megson. And I think he found a way to have the combination of both. We still played up to Kevin Davis. I mean, why wouldn't you when you have a guy that's that influential up front? And we knew we weren't a team that could outpossess some of the best teams in the league. But we played actually what's kind of where football had evolved almost, this like really high intensity. We don't want to play the game in our half. We want to play in the other team's half. Me and Fabrice Muamba would always be the thing before the match. Coyle would go around the locker room and be like, Chungy, I want you to run at your winger. And, Kevin, skipper, hold the ball up, be physical. Stu and Fab, like, get on them. Like, that was our thing, was our ability to just press from the front and win the ball back, and then we could play. And that's what I love, because then we brought in guys like Jack Wilshere and Daniel Sturridge and, Chungy, who was a great footballer, Johan, Martin Petrov. Like the list goes on of these guys that were really good players with the ball at their feet. I wouldn't associate any of those guys with like Route 1 football. And I think that's what that transition from that type of football into a team that liked to play and created some of these brilliant. I mean, I remember a Mark Davis goal against Blackpool here that's still stuck in my head of, he picked up the ball in the middle of the pitch and he was combining, boom, 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 like 16 passes later, he dribbled through 4 guys and slipped the ball in the back of the net. I was thinking, I'm watching like Arsenal from the Invincibles, it's what it felt like at that time. Like, so we had moments that we were capable of goals like that, which was so fun to be a part of that type of football.
Like you said there, that partnership you had with Fabrice was integral to everything we did.
Yeah.
It was the engine room, it was the thing that linked everybody else together. And sadly, losing you both pretty much at the same time.
Crazy,
that was hard to, it was irreplaceable, wasn't it?
My favorite thing with playing with Fab was that, like, he didn't want the ball. He knew his strengths were, like, to run and just hammer somebody. And he had such a great engine and, like, a capacity to run around the pitch. But, like, he would almost, when we were in possession, he would just kind of stay out of the way a little bit and let me drop off and get it from Gary Cahill or Zat Knight and Paul Robinson, and I would be able to turn and combine. And then when I would move up the pitch, he would drop back. And, like, we had this great partnership that worked really well. It's interesting. Like, we would always look at the stats the day after a match on the board. Like, Coyle would have them on a board. And I think sometimes I would have run, like, double the distance of Fab, but yet, like, his high intensity runs were double mine, because when he was running hard, closing players down and tracking back. Like, I have these like memories pouring back, but like, Gareth Bale's running down the wing, Fab's 20-yard sprint smashes him into the sideline, and then, I would be jogging and sprinting around, but like we just had this really great, like the two of us worked well together. And then what happened to him was awful. I was injured, I think, a couple months before his big incident against Tottenham. And that's where I feel for Coyle. And look, the criticisms, I'm sure some of it is fair for sure. I think that day against Stoke, I was injured the match before that. So I was watching that game from the U.S. But, I know little things that I'm sure he still thinks about. Johan Elmander played in my position as a center mid. And he was trying to, I'm sure something tactically he felt like that was going to be something, but there was no like for like switch at that point between, I think Mark Davis was playing already, so we didn't have much depth in that position when you consider the players that we were without. But yeah, I mean, any coach, I think, in any team at our budget level and where we were working, if you lose your 2 starting center midfielders, it's a really tough ask to try to replace like the heart of and the spine of your team.
Especially what you both brought to the team.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
because you were big, high-profile figures as well, and you know the boys looked round at you too as well to get them going at times. You know what I mean? So, like I said before, irreplaceable for me.
Yeah, it was. You know, and it all came from a dreaded day at Old Trafford, which it'd be weird to say like I don't think about it. I've moved so far past that, if I'm being honest, and I have forever been able to like shift my mindset to a place of, again, like I as a kid, right? What do you want to do as a footballer? You want to play in the Premier League. You want to play in a World Cup. Like I did all these things even before that point. So I consider myself grateful, and it was almost like when I got here and once I felt like I was established in a team, I'm playing with house money in a way. I didn't allow that feeling to make me complacent. I was always hungry. I always wanted more. I always wanted to be better. I always competed like an absolute animal on the field. But I'm just like setting the context for when that moment came. And I'm playing at Old Trafford. I grew up. We've already covered this as a Bolton fan, so I grew up a Man United fan. We've already moved past. Like, I'm not a Man United fan. I won't even let my kids buy United kit after what happened on that day. Where look, I mean, I was playing at Old Trafford for the first time, and it was a special moment for me until I leave on a stretcher. But I was trying to win a ball. Chungy played me a pass that kind of skipped away a little quicker. It was a 50-50-ish. But he came in to not lose the tackle. I came in trying to win the tackle. And I remember Kevin Davis a couple weeks later was like, you should have gone in protecting yourself. And I was like, well, it's easy to say now, but you think about these decisions so quickly. You don't have time to react. I go in and I'm not thinking like, okay, get my studs up and whatever. I'm thinking if I win this ball, it's 0-0 in the 80th minute against Manchester United. I'm going to score the match-winning goal and we're going to win because we were playing amazing that day. Instead, I'm like looking down at my knee in shock, and it's a gash this big and it's bleeding, and I knew it wasn't good. Like straight away, you're in this like instant shock. But it wasn't really until like I'd gone off the field. I remember getting a cheer from the crowd on the stretcher. We get into this back room, and the medical staff is like looking at the X-ray they'd just taken. And initially, the guy was like, you're gonna need stitches on your shin, like you've got really bad cut, but you're gonna be fine. And then all of a sudden I see like people pointing at this like board, and I'm thinking, this is not good. And then the doc at the time, Dr. Tobin, he was like, look, I think we're gonna have to get you down to London tomorrow to like get another scan on this because they think there might be some type of like fracture, but we need to like, check on what it is. It ended up being like the worst case, which was like a piece of bone chipped off the back of my knee in like the most random place. My surgeon had never seen it before, and it was like dubbed like a 1 in a million injury. Well, so unlucky, but yes.
Unlucky you.
Very unlucky. Yeah. And yeah, the next thing you know, I'm getting the surgery, and my knee was pinned with a metal pin, and like they're like, oh, instead of 6 weeks out, you're out for a year. And like that was devastating to receive that news,
But even then, Stuart, I mean, like you said, at the time, you knew it was a bad tackle.
Yeah.
You knew the circumstances that after that, you knew how long you were going to be out. But you still never deemed it as a career-ending injury.
No, I didn't. I always felt that I could overcome anything. And I got back on the field, so it was like career ending, but not. But then really, like, if I point to what kind of, I mean, I could probably count the games since that game that I played on two hands. I got back. I played for the U.S., finished out a season here when we were in the championship. But it was like I got back the following Premier League season. We played a game at Aston Villa, and I played 90 minutes. I felt unbelievable. I was like flying in that game. Woke up the next morning, my knee was like, boom. And so I thought, like, that's not good. Like, a little bit swollen, but, part of the process, need to let it calm down, but I'll be fine. So then, like, 2 weeks later, still a little swollen. I traveled down to play Arsenal, tried to give it a go on the match day, and, like, just didn't feel right. So I was in London, so our doc said, let's just go see the surgeon for a checkup and see where you're at. And then I go in, and he's like, looks like the pin has actually worked its way back out of your knee, and it's chipped off some cartilage. So, like, let's just go in and tidy it up, and we'll pull the pin out. You're probably going to be out for another 2 months, which was like, expletive. And I go in for this surgery. I wake up and there's like crutches next to my bed. And I was thinking, that doesn't feel right. And then the surgeon comes in and he's like, so when we went into your knee, we saw that actually the damage to your cartilage was way worse than we'd feared. So we did a microfracture procedure to fix it. But instead of 2 months, that means you're out for another year. And I was just like, what? And I had no idea that that was coming. And so for me, that was honestly, I think, the lowest I felt in, since my dad passed away, which was, 16 years ago. Like, that was the worst and the lowest point, because it was just a feeling of like, I've done so much to get back to here, and I'm right here, and I played a game a week ago, and now it's another year out. Like, that was when, and again, the club were so good with me. Phil Gartside, the chairman at the time, he was like, look, we're going to send you to America, go and do your rehab away from here, get yourself right, get mentally sorted, work with a trainer, and just like, you need a break. And that was like really tough time. And I got back from that, felt really good, I'm trying to piece it all together now. It was a long story, isn't it? But I did get back from that. And then that was when I finished out the championship season. I went to the Gold Cup with the U.S., went to the qualifiers, and then I was like, Gold Cup final. I played 6 games in a row. USA were playing Panama, and I'm flying again, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to come back next season. I'm going to be amazing. And then Gold Cup final, I tore my ACL on the other knee because I was overcompensating for the knee because I was still feeling tons of pain, but I was like fine to play. And then like it was ACL. Fast forward another 6 months after that, I'm like 3 months before the World Cup. I pushed through a rehab. They put on a reserve game for me here at the Reebok. And I remember like 4,000 fans turned up to watch me play Everton for my first game back. And I was like 6 months after an ACL, which was so stupid that I was trying to play again. But again, like I felt good. And then 22nd minute, snapped my ACL again. And that was the last time I ever stepped on a football pitch. So yeah, it's just like, to your point, John, it's like it was one and another and another. And then this like up and down and just this feeling that I could never get away from that. But I always said to myself, I said like, you get to do this one time in your life. Dougie Freeman took me for a meal in Manchester after that ACL here. And he said, what are you doing? You got to start not just thinking about your career now. You got to think about your life. Yeah. Like, what do you want to be like with your kids? Like, he's like, you've done that cruise shit now 3 times and your left knee. And like, you've got to start thinking about like, when's enough? And I remember looking him in the eyes and saying, probably blindly and stupidly, but like, I'm going to push it to the point where I know medical advances are going to get better and like, I'm going to be fine, like down the line. I'm going to have 15 surgeries. I don't care. But like, I want to do this until I know I've given it absolutely everything that I can handle mentally, physically. And I know that point and that timing is right. And it didn't even feel right in that moment to say like, I'm done. And I wanted to give it one more go, which I kind of did, but away from here in the US. And I was like rehabbing back. And I was like out there playing with some reserve teams in the States and training. And I just thought, I couldn't get to where I knew I was as a player. And that for me was the moment to walk away. It was like, I don't want to come back and play like, lower league in a setting where my memories of myself as a footballer are like the best days as a Premier League player at Bolton here in the stadium and scoring. And like, I didn't want to be walking off the field for the last time just being a footballer. And like, there was something. And then my daughter was being born and I was like, I'd started doing TV and this just felt like the natural evolution in my life. And that was the moment that I have no regrets to this day. I walked away. I could look myself in the mirror and say, I gave it everything I could. And I'm happy with that decision. And I love my life now. And I have odd moments like throughout the last 10 years where I think, why did that have to happen? Like those were the best days of my life. And to think of what we could have achieved. And then I like snap back into this feeling that I live in a day-to-day basis of like, what an amazing experience I got to have as a footballer, as a person, and the connection with the fans and living here as a 25-year-old and my grandparents living right up the street and coming to every single match like that. That's the stuff that I remember. And that's what makes me so excited to come back here. Not thinking like, oh man, I'm coming back to the Bolton, the site that I got. But no, I don't even think that way. Like I could not be more excited to be coming back here tonight and seeing a football match. Yeah. So
you're a right positive person, Stuart. You mentioned you're a glass half full man, but doing your knee like that on so many occasions, that must have been hard, being out for so long.
Yeah.
And then calling time on it as well. That must have been
It was hard for sure. Yeah, I cried along the way. I had moments that were dark. I had my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and mother to my 2 kids. Like, she was there for me throughout all of those experiences. My family, my support system, and including people like the fans. But yeah, I had days. Like, there were days that you just never felt like you could get over a certain milestone in your recovery. And I think that's what people don't always appreciate when players get injured, that like, oh, you're collecting your wages and you're not playing. Like, the only thing that makes us happy is playing on that pitch. Yeah. Like, that's why we do it. I mean, the money and of course, that part's like, that's part of it, and that part is nice. But like, I would trade so much to do that again, out in the, and those are the moments you think about. And that's what, look, when you try to go from like even just getting healthy to then getting fit to like playing the way these guys play on a day-to-day basis, and how fast the game is, and just the athletes and the capacity that these guys have now, you have to do so much training, like running, pure fitness, to even be at a base level to get back into training. And it's like awful runs. I mean, it's like poles that are 40 yards apart and just grinding, and you're suffering every run, and it's just like you're not listening to music and having like a good time. That's hard. And I always used to just have moments in my head that I'm like, I've asked different athletes this over the years, like, what are you saying to yourself in those moments? Like, how are you motivating yourself to push a little more, to run a little harder? And I was just like, you can do it. Don't be a soft whatever. It's like, you've got this in you. People don't believe you can do it. Like, I would almost use that motivation of people saying, "Oh, he's brittle and this and that," and like, that's the way I motivated myself in some ways. And I was a very self-motivated guy. But those were hard moments. And I think anyone that says otherwise is lying. I think most people are quite honest about that fact. But I always found a way to feel sorry for myself for like a week or two. And then after that, it was like, all right, go. And, set little milestones along the way of like, you're going to get, once you're running and once you're doing this in the gym, and checking them off. And every time I would check off a milestone, I felt good. And that was almost became a challenge for me that I enjoyed in a sick, twisted way. But like, it's how I got back to doing what I do.
I think that's where the Scottish in you probably helped as well.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because not admitting defeat.
Yeah.
Keeping yourself going. I would think that's where.
That came from family for sure, and like like a grittiness and a toughness. And I was a smaller kid growing up, and like I didn't grow till I was like 18, 19. So I think always playing against bigger kids and playing against people that like really challenged me. I think about this a lot now with being a dad and having kids, of finding ways to challenge them and push them. And I always say, if you're the best kid on your team, you need to find a new team, because I think you can always learn and also find your level up. Like when I came to Bolton, I always say because I get asked a lot about this in the US, of like difference between MLS and Premier League or the Championship, and there's this constant like comparison between the two leagues. And I think there's a number of players in the MLS that could play in the Premier League. But in saying that, like when I got into that first training, I went from a team in Houston that had like 4 or 5 really elite players. And then like, the level would kind of level off as the deeper you went into the roster. I remember like my first training here at Bolton, and I'm playing with basically 23 internationals between like players at different countries, and the level of training was just insane. And I remember thinking, man, you're going to have to really prove yourself, and you can't take a play off, and you have to train hard and recover. And like it was definitely a step up for me, but one that I almost took a challenge upon myself to say, like, you can do this, but it did take an adjustment period for me to realize just how intense and how quick. And like the Premier League being obviously the best league in the world, that was an adjustment for me to prove even to Owen Coyle, who's like, I see something there, to be like, that's my guy. You have to kind of prove that you can handle the mental and the physical aspect on a consistent basis.
And the mental thing probably, Stuart, is the games are relentless, aren't you?
Yeah.
And the level of the games as well. Like you said, you can't go on there half-cocked and just play half a shift.
No.
Top-class games, week in, week out. and it's getting yourself up for that, isn't it?
Yeah, look, that I mentioned earlier in our chat, like the Wolves game, which was my true Premier League debut. And I think it was like the 15th or 16th minute, like the ball finally went out for a goal kick for us. I remember thinking, whew, all right. And I turn around and UC's like rolled the ball on and just punted it. I was thinking, oh my God, mate, can you just get like 2 minutes? I thought it'd be like, right, lads, push up, we're going to get in position. He was just like, whoom, go again. And I'm heads on a swivel, just running around like an absolute headless chicken. And like, that was the moment I realized. And those games were harder, honestly, against like Wolves, Birmingham, any team in and around like what we were at that Stoke. I mean, Stoke were horrible to play against because they just were kicking you nonstop and long throws, and these guys that were 6'5" just smashing into the box. And whereas like for 10, 15 minutes against Man United, you actually felt like a world-class footballer because they kind of give you the ball and they're like, oh yeah, you guys are making 15-yard passes, and then boom, they'd win the ball back. And same against Liverpool. And then the one chance they have, they score. Or, Drogba scored this ridiculous goal here against us where I gave him maybe a half yard of space. I was slightly late shuffling over, and he smashes one from 35 yards. I'm not thinking he's going to shoot from there, and it's like this wobbly ball that UC's flapping at and smashes the back of the net. Like, that was the fine margins between a team like us, which I felt was like a middle upper level team that year, to like the absolute top teams. But then, you play against United and you're turning around, you're playing against Wolves. There's not like, oh, it's Wolves now. It's like, oh, crap. Like, we're going to have to fight like dogs again in this match. And it was, you roll your sleeves up and you get in there. But I love that. Like, that was my favorite, just like getting stuck in. And I always remember that about English football is like, I would probably get a bigger cheer for a 30-yard run to tackle a guy and smash him into the sideboards here, and like half the crowd would be on their feet just cheering, as opposed to like, a beautiful 15, 20-yard pass that maybe created a goal. They'd rather like, and I learned that about Bolton fans too, they just appreciated the commitment and the effort. And like, I do think that's why we connected well, because that's how I played every game. And I played at 100 miles an hour, and I wanted to win, but I knew what was important to that.
I think the fact you just said it there, Stuart, you reflected the town.
Yeah.
This is a tough town. Money's hard to come by in the town. People work hard for their money, and they come here on a Saturday to watch their team, and they expect to see their players fighting and working hard like they have to do during the week. And a lot of our fans, the only respite they get is by coming here on a Saturday for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And when they see the players responding, like yourself, they'll love you.
It's so true. I speak to my kids about this, about my experiences here, and even just how that reflects into a 9-year-old football match. I'm not a crazy parent, and I don't care about results even at that age. I want my kids to have fun, but I always tell my daughter, I said, the only thing I ask of you is that when you are on the field, that you work hard and that you're relentless in the way you approach anything that you do, whether that's football, your gymnastics, your dance, your school. And for that period that you're doing something like that, you approach it in the right way and you give it the respect it deserves, and your teachers the respect they deserve, because that's their time and that's their profession. And your coaches, you listen to your coaches, but you work hard. And that's the only time I will ever get on her ever, is from the sideline, is if she's just like, kind of strolling about. It's all I care. I don't care if she makes a bad pass. I don't care if she loses 7-0. I just don't care. I want her to have a good time, and I want her to work hard. And something my parents instilled in me from a very young age. And I think, to your point, I think I understood that. I think our team understood that at that time. And that's like the bare minimum. And I think people and supporters can understand that you're not going to win every game of football. Teams are going to be better than you. There's going to be unlucky bounces. There's going to be games that just don't go your way. But there's one thing that I know fans, they don't like, and that's that when they see that people don't care and they're not putting effort, and there's not an understanding of what it means to represent that badge that you're wearing. And I was always told, again, this is my dad taught me some good lessons over the years, but the names on the back don't last. Those are temporary. It's the badge on the front is the one that is forever. And I will forever be a name that has represented this club. But as you can see now, there's 28, 30 footballers that are representing this club that are more relevant to the town and to the supporters in the current standing, and the kids growing up will be supporting these players. And I'm part of, as you are, this rich history of this football club. And my only hope was that when I left here, there was a feeling and a mutual respect for how I represented the club, and that we had good memories together, and that I'm very proud to have represented this football club at a point in my career that I consider so special.
Well, I think you'll see tonight it's more than that, Stuart.
Yeah.
They really took you to their hearts, and I think you'll see the response of that tonight as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. I was going to talk to the new gaffer if I can play a few minutes,
Yeah, sure you get one.
Do we get many extra subs?
I've been trying that for a while, Stuart.
Can we have a Legends game again? I'll fly back for that, for sure.
Yeah, that'd be superb. Talk to us about the Blackburn goal, because you blew the roof off this place. That must have been something special. God.
Yeah, that's it's like 2 goals I scored in my career that like I consider goals that were like my first goal for the US on my debut. But like this one just stood above the rest, I think, just because of the circumstance and the game that we were in, and Blackburn being a massive rival, and us being on top for most of the game. And then they scored that late goal here in the 89th minute. And we were down a man. We'd had a sending off in that match. I think it was Mark Davis. Sparky, what you doing, mate? And like it was just, you could feel that the air was like sucked out of the stadium, and it was when the team was playing really well. So I think we were feeling, we can really push for something this season. But like, just the way and the spirit of that team was we weren't feeling that. Like that energy was gone. We were like, come on, lads, we've got. We can still find a way to win this game. And the kickoff goes back. I ran straight forward. Ball goes back to Ricketts. He smashes it up to Kevin Davis. And I just gambled because I knew, as Kevin often did, he had just such a great way of using his body. And he sends Ryan Nelson to the floor. They had been celebrating. So Samba, the other center back, he wasn't even back in position quite really yet. And I found like that little gap. And then at that point, it was just all a blur for me, honestly. I remember rolling it onto my left foot and smashing it. I haven't scored many goals with my left foot, and let alone any like that. And then once the ball hit the net, I swear to you, I just blacked out. And I've seen the celebration, obviously, a million times. But I'm like running, holding my hand up in the air like this to the crowd. Matt Taylor's bringing me to the ground. It was like a dog pile. But I only know these memories because I've seen the video. Like I just, had this moment of ecstasy where I really don't remember much other than the roar of the crowd when, even after when the PA announcer always used to say, and like, give it up for number 22, Stuart Holden. It's like, I think it was number 8 at that time, whatever. That was like, I have goosebumps thinking about that. It was such a cool moment because we obviously won that game, but to beat our rivals at the end, and like it was a big game on Sky that weekend, so it was like the Sunday special match, and like that was awesome. Man.
If I'm not mistaken, Big Sam was the manager.
He got
sacked not long after that. Sorry, Sam. Sorry, not sorry.
But it was, and like you said there, the work ethic of the team, because conceding an 89th minute goal, but saying no, the game's not over, and to reply so quickly, because all of a sudden the fans are a bit down. Their fans are still celebrating when you scored.
What's so cool though is like I get these messages still of people like. I think it ended up becoming a goal for a lot of people where they were like, where were you when that goal happened? Like what part of the stands? And people will send me pictures still to this day of like, here's me and my son celebrating you, scoring that goal. And my Bolton mate that I made here, living here, he saw me post that I was at the train station, all that. He goes, "Oh, I feel like it's about time you've posted your goal for the 50th time on your social." Like every time he posts it, he goes, "Oh, not again." But like that again, like it was a marquee moment for me, and a moment when I look back on my career that I want to remember. And I think it's okay to feel like that was a special goal, and I'll keep smashing it down people's throats.
Quite right too.
Listen, you'll never tire of seeing it.
Yeah.
Never, ever.
No, I won't at all.
I won't.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Brilliant.
When you moved into the broadcasting game then, Stuart, how did that come about? Is that something you always fancied doing, or did it just happen by accident?
As my teammates from here would tell you, I was not shy of an interview. So, win, lose, or draw, I was happy to stand in front of the cameras. I would volunteer for interviews quite frequently. So whether that's I'm narcissistic or whatever. No, I'm kidding. It was like even our press officer at the time, she used to say like, so I've got like 10 requests for you from this and that. Like, which ones do you want to do? And I was like, I'll do them all. And she's like, no, pick 2. And I was like, why? Why not? I'll do them all. Like, I don't know. I just enjoyed that part of the game. And I also think recognized that like, back home in the U.S., that was where a lot of people were watching and consuming football and would follow the Premier League, knowing that I was a part of it. And it was like a way for me to connect with people back home. And my mom like loved seeing me do, on TV and things like that. So actually, when I tore my ACL in the Gold Cup final with the U.S., I had a text from a producer for ESPN at the time, who's now become a mentor and now a really good friend of mine. But he was the first one to say, I think you'd be like really good at television if you thought about doing that while you're recovering from your injury, just in your downtime. And I said, yeah, sure. Like, why not? I mean, I was back home. I was still doing my PT every day. So that was still my focus, was like, I always said to them, if it ever gets in the way of me being able to put a full focus into my recovery, I still want to play football. I made that very clear. But I said, I do have to start being a little smart now about like, what am I going to do after if, worst case, I can't play again, which ended up being the case. And so I did a little bit, that kind of grew, did a little bit more. And then when I officially retired, I signed with Fox Sports, who I've been with now for 10 years, and do the World Cups and get to travel. And it's a job I love. I've found a level of stimulation that like and like a buzz that is similar to playing football, but nothing will ever recreate that feeling when you're walking out of the tunnel in a big match or playing in a game. But yeah, I mean, moments before the World Cup final that I called in 2022, and it's Messi and Argentina against France, and Messi winning the World Cup, like I had a huge buzz doing that game because we're broadcasting to 28 million people and they're listening to my voice, unfortunately or fortunately. But it's a job that I love, and I still get to be so close to football. And I feel like I get to share some of the experiences that I've learned through my career and the way I see the game and communicate that and connect to an American audience. And I hope to do it for a long time. We'll see. It's like football too. There's people that want my job, and there's a competitive element that I like, but I just enjoy it on a day-to-day, and I still get to travel. And, for example, I'm on a month off right now, so I just chose to travel to Europe with my family and made this decision to come here and to go to a match on Friday at Anfield. And I'm immersing my kids, but I get to have those experiences because I have this time off as well. So it's a fun gig.
There must be a lot of excitement for next year World Cup.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The World Cup's going to be, I think, everyone keeps saying it's going to be a massive World Cup. I mean, just purely the size of teams, 48 teams, 3 different nations for the first time hosting between us, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But I'm trying to tell people in the U.S. that are not like avid football, soccer fans, like prepare yourself, because this is going to be an absolute insane 6 weeks of... You're going to underestimate the amount of people that are going to come that won't even have tickets to matches, but are going to travel and just to see the country and be around this experience, because we haven't hosted a World Cup since '94, and so much has changed from our football culture in the U.S., but even just the landscape of football in general. So I can't wait. It's gonna be an unbelievable tournament, and I hope kind of really catapults the U.S. a little bit further forward in the way we feel about football.
I think from the point of view, Stuart, the stadium, the infrastructure you've got now in the country is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think back 15, 20 years ago when they were playing in NFL stadiums, etc., now they've all got purpose-built stadiums. You've just gone... I mean, you've gone to another planet now, haven't you? The game in America.
So I played in MLS in 2006 to 2010, and at that time there were 16, maybe 14 teams in MLS. There's 30 now. So the league's not only doubled, but we were playing in some of those like American football venues and drawing 5,000, 6,000 fans, and it just felt cavernous. And then now almost all teams have soccer-specific venues, they call them, but like stadiums that are purely built for football with like the high gradient stands and avid fan bases, and they sell out consistently. And it has taken football truly to the next level, and the league has improved so much. Still have room to go to become anywhere closer to Premier League, La Liga, Liga, Bundesliga. But you can't deny the sport's growth and the amount of money and the infrastructure investment. And then considering like the World Cup won't even be at any of these stadiums because they're not even satisfying the World Cup venue, which needs like a 40,000 seater. Those are going to be played in these like $3 billion stadiums like we have in LA. This SoFi Stadium is unbelievable. Like this, it's an incredible venue that's going to house 90,000 fans. Brand new stadiums in Dallas and Atlanta. Like these venues will just be filled to the brim with football fans, and not even that. I think fans will be blown away by just. I know you have some new stadiums in the UK, like Tottenham's looks really, really nice, and the proposals for United's and different things. But these venues now are truly on another level. Even MLS clubs are spending $150 million on training grounds. So just purely like there's an arms race in our football training matches, training grounds now, because trying to recruit talent from the UK, they come to the US, and before it was like subpar standard training grounds. Now you walk in, I mean, it's like state-of-the-art facilities that are $150 million with everything you could imagine. That I walk in sometimes, I'm like, what sport is this? Like, this is soccer in America. Like, it has truly come a long way.
Yeah. Let's hope Scotland make that World Cup, eh?
I would love to see Scotland there, trust me.
It would.
Yeah.
Talking of Scotland, Stuart, I mean, I know you obviously ended up moving to America and playing there, but did it ever cross your mind play for Scotland?
I've been asked this a few times, actually. So, like, when I moved to the US, I was 10. I grew up playing, obviously, a good chunk of my early career in Scotland, but then I as I embedded into American culture, I started to feel more American in my teen years, and then I got called up by the US under 20s, representing the U.S. at the youth national team level. So like already was now starting to think, okay, I'm playing for U.S. youth. No contact ever from anyone in Scotland at that point. And then when I was in the MLS and starting to, really take off in my career, I remember there was like one article in maybe the Scottish Sun or the Record or something that Alec McLeish, who was the manager at the time, was asked about me and saying, have you kept eyes on this young Scottish lad, like he's doing well in MLS and he's been called up now by the full national team, and it wasn't an official competition, it was like a January camp they call it, which is like a friendly. And I remember him just saying like, yeah, we're aware of him, but he's not quite the level for Scotland at that time or whatever. So then fast forward and 6 months later I was called up by the US for the Gold Cup, and like it was kind of a no-brainer. I didn't have a decision to make, if that makes sense. It wasn't like I was phoning up Alex saying, hey, are you sure you don't want me? Like it was kind of, for me, I was thinking, well, here's a country that really wants me to play for them. Yeah. It's the Gold Cup. And like, I knew also for me to get to the Premier League, I think I had to be playing international football or soccer. And so I just was like, okay, this just felt right for me. I felt quite American, very proud of my Scottish heritage. And, obviously my family, Scotland, Aberdeen born, and still I got married in a kilt. Many years later, but yeah, international football wise, and also I did have a better chance. Sorry, lads, to play in a World Cup with the US than
I was going to say, yeah,
than Scotland. Unintentional low blow there.
Yeah, that was 2010, wasn't it? But you done your ACL just before that as well, didn't you?
No, I played in 2010. Yeah, it was 2014. So 2009 was my debut with the US. Yeah. Represented the US in the 2010.
Yeah.
World Cup, and then following that was probably my best season of football here, and then got injured a couple months before the 2014, which is why I tried to push back stupidly for the ACL for the World Cup. But in hindsight, as a player, you just can't stop yourself. You're like, I feel good. Yeah. But if someone said you need to wait until the World Cup's gone, I'd have been like, you're mad, I'm playing. So I don't blame anybody, but myself.
Yeah. And Bolton, then obviously you're watching the team tonight, but hopefully you can get back up to this team that you were part of in the Premier League. It seems to be on a good footing, a lot of optimism around.
Yeah, I've been watching from afar. I remember when we got relegated. I remember then when the team went down to League One. I remember all the financial struggles and the change of ownership and. Just it's difficult. I'm involved in football ownership now at Mallorca. I have been for 8 years, and so we went through similar. We were relegated from the second Spanish division to the third, then back to the second, and now first La Liga for 5 seasons straight. And so it's possible, but it's difficult. And I think England's the hardest of all because of the amount of money at stake from the Championship to the Premier League, the amount of people investment from foreign investment trying to do it, and it's expensive and it's difficult, and football is hard. And so gosh, the heartbreak of the playoff final to go to the Championship, and the amount of momentum the club had at that time, and coming back from League Two to League One to almost going to the Championship. Then you could see the next season at the beginning, really the momentum had gone, and it just felt time to change coaches and try to regain a bit of that again. And it's hard. You have some great players that have come on loan over the past couple of years. Then they do well, and then they are going to bigger clubs. I mean, it's Connor Bradley, right? That was the Liverpool right back. He was brilliant, and I watched him playing with Liverpool. If he could come back to us for a season or two. But I believe, and you know what's great for me even to see is no matter the league that Bolton was in, I would still see the attendance, and I would look at the box score, and you'd still see that these fans turn up and they come and support this team, and that is pretty remarkable. And I think I always tell that story to American fans that are glory hunters, and like when the team nobody turns up. These fans come to support their team. This is their team. There's no other team you support. And my wife has a good analogy because she went to her college that her whole family support in the U.S. University. Like sports is the closest we have to the tribalism of English football. And her family, like they are diehard Ohio State Buckeyes, and you don't support anyone else, thick or thin. You would never wear or buy a Michigan University top. And I always used to say, like, you guys are nuts. And she's like, but we're like, if you grow up in a town, like, you support that football team, and that is, you go on a weekend, it's like going to church, and you support it, and it's something you talk about, and you live and die by these moments on the pitch. And I think that's something really special about British football in general, is that you ride or die with your team, and you will turn up and support. And sure, you're going to stand in the crowds and you're going to yell at your players sometimes because they're playing but that's part of it. Those players recognize it too. But you want nothing but the best for this football club in town. And so I, like any former player, I hope we want to see this club do well, and I would love to see us back to the Premier League one day.
Well, you touched on it there. I think last season ended up being quite a poor season in the end for us. Again, change of coach halfway through the season. The coach that's here now obviously come in, tried to implement his ideas, which didn't really take fruition really until this pre-season. He was working with the previous coach's squad, but you'll see a big change when you watch the game tonight. I think you'll be pleased. You'll be pleased with the work ethic, the work off the ball. We've got wingers, we've got pace in that final third. It's exciting. It's last year, even although it was a bad season, still averaged 21,500.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, it's absolutely tremendous. It really is. And like you said, you're born into it. And the day you're not a Bolton fan is the day you leave this earth. Yeah.
It's funny because even the attendances, I had a couple Bolton fans messaging me saying, "Oh, it's a shame you're coming for the cup game. Like, you should see a league match and see how this stadium feels and what it looks like." And I will plan to obviously come back sooner than, it's not going to be 10 years until I'm back again. But I don't, I don't care. Like, I'm here to watch this team play, and and I know the atmosphere is going to be great, and it's going to be pretty cool for me to sit in the stands and watch a game back here again for the first time in a long time. And it's going to be really weird, I think, at first, just like kind of sitting there and being like, where am I? Yeah, no, go back in the home dressing room. Sorry. Oh, my upstairs. Oh, sorry, yeah.
But you would have enjoyed Saturday. Saturday was good. The atmosphere was tremendous. The performance was really, really good. And I think that was the first home game, really, when the head coach has put his mark on it, I think. Yeah. And the fans can actually now see what he's doing.
Well, that's good. Because, I would imagine now the fans will get kind of behind the group again. Yeah.
I mean, Saturday was really important in that sense, whereas, he put his mark on it. The fans seen it, they've recognised it, they were pleased with it. So now, I think the crowd will even grow even more now.
Yeah, good. Well, we have to beat Sheffield Wednesday. I was on loan there for a month.
You were? Yes. 4 games there?
Yeah, a couple of games. Yeah, that was when I was trying to come back from one of the injuries, and it was fine. I had a good. The fans were great to me there too.
Huge club.
Hillsborough was awesome environment. Really, good. At the last game or two, Dave Jones I think he left me out of one of the squads, and because he had too many lone players, and Dougie was like, "Oh, I'll get you back here," But I had a good month there. It was fun and good connection, and it was again another step for me in my recovery. But it'll be weird now. It's like some of my kids are like, "Didn't you play for that team too?" I was like, "Yeah, I was there on loan for a month." And
well, it'll be interesting to see Stuart tonight because it's a shame the situation they're in at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
Very similar to what we went through, so we can sympathise with them. That's for sure. But it'll be a funny one tonight because I think they've only got 15 first team players.
Well,
So,
I'm not going on loan to them. That's for sure.
but they played on Sunday as well, so I'd imagine.
Oh, good. Well, I hope we hump them then.
I can't really see them playing their team tonight, if I'm honest with you.
No Barry Bannon as well.
And Barry Bannon got to that.
No, he's Scotsman.
Yeah, that Scottish temper again.
He's got a Scottish temper, that lad.
Well, it's been great having you on, Stu.
Yeah,
Thank you very much
you
for
guys.
coming on. Absolute pleasure.
Was happy to do it. Yeah, I love. I'm sure I'll listen to back and get on the comments with the fans and have a bit of banter after. But I'm truly really excited for tonight and excited to see a lot of people that also is going to make me feel really old. I've seen some pictures of like people saying, "Oh, we're excited to have you back," and it's like, "This is me and you," and I'm like, "You're like 7 years old." And now you're a grown adult. Man, has it been 10 years?
With a big bushy beard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's more than I've got.
But no, it's been an absolute pleasure, and let's make sure it's not 10 years before.
That's right. No,
come
definitely
back again,
not.
Because again, these people love you, and they need to see more of you.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you, guys.